How well did Jim Carrey speak Korean in his movie Yes Man? Take a look at this scene.
정준하 씨는 어때요?
제가 천천한 친구 역할인데요. 나를 굉장히 싫어해요.
So following our look into the Korean lines in the TV show Lost and the movie Black Panther, in this third episode, the movie we're going to analyze today is the 2008 comedy Yes Man. Watching this movie, I realized once again that Jim Carrey is truly a legendary actor. But have you ever wondered how someone who had never learned Korean before managed to pull off these lines?
No.
And you know what? We found Jim Carrey's Korean teacher. We'll hear directly from him later in this video, so please continue watching. I am Hyunwoo and you're watching Talk to Me in Korean. So for those who haven't seen the movie yet, here's a quick summary. Jim Carrey plays a bank loan officer named Carl who is negative about everything. He rejects every request or invite with a variety of excuses. But after attending a seminar, he decides to become a yes man and say yes to absolutely every opportunity. At first, he's skeptical, but saying yes actually brings him new opportunities and good luck. He starts learning to fly a plane, to play a guitar, and then he sees a flyer for Korean language classes and decides to say yes to that too. And as it turns out, learning Korean becomes crucial for him later in the movie. And according to an interview, Jim Carrey actually practiced every single day for 4 weeks to master these lines. He even said that it was the hardest thing he's ever done in his life.
You know, it was harder for the coach than it was for me. It really was. It was painful for him. So I think I did pretty good, and I'm ready for my dinner with Kim Jong-il.
And now, before we look at some scenes from the movie, what did Korean people generally think of Jim Carrey's Korean skills? Did it really sound like the character actually learned Korean? This comment says, 저 당시에 외화에서 나오는 한국어치고 훌륭해. For a foreign movie in that era, it's good. Next comment says, 번역도 억양도 너무 사랑스럽게 잘했음. 이런 게 디테일이지. 너무 here is short for 너무, really, 사랑스럽게, in a lovely manner. So it was really well done. And this person says, 짐 캐리 진짜 명배우라 불릴만 하네. 한국어를 하는데 국어책 읽듯이 하는 게 아니라 느낌까지 잘 살리네. 명배우 means a great actor, and 국어책 읽듯이. 국어책 is a Korean textbook for Korean people, and 읽듯이 like you read. So it's not like he sounds like he's reading a Korean textbook. And 느낌을 살리다 means to make the feelings feel real. So from these comments, you can see that a lot of people generally thought his Korean skills were very impressive in this movie. Now let's take a look at the actual scenes. Scene number 1. Carl sees a flyer for a Korean class. The flyer says, 영어를 할 수 있어요. Do you know what that means? 영어를 할 수 있어요. It means I can speak English or you can speak English. I think the prop designers probably got mixed up between the word for English and the word for Korean because 영어 is English. It's a flyer for a Korean class, so it should be 한국어를 할 수 있어요. You can speak Korean. But it's a classic Hollywood mistake, so we can let it slide. Now, in the next scene, we're going into the classroom.
정준하 씨는 어때요?
정준하 씨는 어때요?
잘했어요.
There are so many interesting things happening here. First, look at the blackboard. They are learning very basic consonants and vowels, and you can also see the distinct way the letters ni은 and 시옷 are written with a sharp angle. This is actually a somewhat old school or traditional font style, rarely handwritten like that anymore nowadays. And if you look at the desk in front of the teacher, there's a little flag there. You know already that that's not the South Korean flag, it's the North Korean flag. I think it's quite strange to see that in a regular Korean language class setting in the US, unless the teacher is specifically from North Korea, but his accent sounds like a standard South Korean native speaker. So I think maybe that was also just humor. I don't know. One very important thing that I've noticed from this classroom scene is that I can't see any Talk to Me in Korean books on the desks. Well, this movie came out in 2008 and we started Talk to Me in Korean in 2009, so that's fair, but still, that's a shame. Just kidding, but you are lucky because you can get our books very easily on our online bookstore or on Amazon. So if anyone wants to use real Korean textbooks as a prop in a movie or drama, send me an email, please. I think this is also fun because everything else on the blackboard is super basic Korean letters, like in the very first lesson you have, but then all of a sudden you are saying a full sentence out loud. I think the sentence was chosen mainly to have Jim Carrey say something out loud, right? 청주 날씨는 어때요? How is the weather in 청주? 청주 is a place name and 날씨 is the weather. 어때요? How is it? Cheongju is a real place in Korea, and I've been to that city several times myself. And our very own Seungwon is actually from Cheongju too, but it's relatively smaller and quieter place. And because it's a bit random to suddenly see Cheongju mentioned here, people from Cheongju were very, very excited to see their city name mentioned in the movie. 지금 청주 날씨는 아주 맑고 청명한 전형적인 가을 날씨를 보이고 있습니다. Almost like what a weather forecaster would say. And then this person also wrote, 청주 출신으로 가슴이 웅장해집니다. Maybe Seungwon wrote it. And another tiny little point that's also fun. The romanization for Cheongju here is like that, Chongju. The current official romanization is Cheongju, like with EO, but neither O or EO expresses the sound of very accurately. So with the Korean language, it is always best to just learn Hangul, the Korean writing system, the Korean characters. It's really easy to learn, and you can learn it in just a couple of hours, and we have the full course available here on our YouTube channel. And now for the most important scene. Carl tries to help a bridal shower planner, Sumi, in this scene. The actress playing Sumi here is Vivian Bang, who emigrated to the US when she was 7. So her Korean has a very specific heritage speaker vibe, which means her vocabulary is simple, but she's fluent and can express emotions very, very naturally. And by the way, you might have also seen her in this famous dinner scene with Keanu Reeves in the 2019 movie, Always Be My Maybe.
So where's your man?
There he is!
So now let's break down the most important lines from the dialogue.
살고 말라면 말고.
Sumi says here, 살라면 사고, 말라면 말고, kind of under her breath, like 살라면 살고, 말라면 말고. If you're gonna buy it, buy it. If not, don't. It's like, make up your mind already. In standard Korean, 살라면, if you're gonna buy, it should actually be 사려면. In fact, in classrooms, 살라면 might actually be recognized as incorrect Korean, but in spoken Korean, you hear it all the time. It's quite common, and this is only for easier pronunciation. So following this pattern, for example, if you want to do 하려면, changes to 하려면 in spoken Korean. A lot of children do that too. And this kind of change is accepted in spoken Korean, but you don't want to use this in very formal settings because you can sound unprofessional depending on the situation.
아가씨, 무슨 안 좋은 일 있어요?
Carl says, 아가씨, 무슨 안 좋은 일 있어요? 아가씨, kind of like miss. Here, 무슨 doesn't mean what or what kind of, but actually some kind of. Do you have some kind of trouble? And 안 좋은 is not good, and 일 here can mean work in other contexts, but here it's just a situation or something that happened. And 있어요 means is there? Do you have? So altogether, 무슨 안 좋은 일 있어요? Is there some kind of not good thing happening? Anything wrong? And then let's quickly go back to the term Carl uses to address Sumi, 아가씨, 아가씨. I think this also shows really well how fast languages change, especially the Korean language. Back in 2008, when this movie came out, it was probably more okay to call a young lady who's not married 아가씨 in a store like this too. But not anymore these days. It's much less commonly used, the term 아가씨, and these days people just prefer saying 여기요, or here, or 사장님, owner of the business, to get somebody's attention. The word 아가씨 itself is just really rarely used these days. What you might also find interesting is that hundreds of years ago, the word 아가씨 was actually used to refer to an unmarried daughter of someone of a high, very high status. But nowadays, it actually feels the opposite. Calling someone 아가씨 in person feels like there's not enough respect. So it went from high respect to neutral and now to low respect. I find it personally really fascinating. Now we have more lines in the movie that were in Korean, but I'm not going to analyze all of the remaining lines here because there's quite a lot. But I will say that all the lines that Jim Carrey said here were said really fast, really fluidly. I watched this particular part twice to actually understand everything, but overall, I can really see that he practiced a ton. The effort really shows. For example,
수미는요? 4시간은 언제냐고요?
아, 이해가 되네요.
이해가 되네요. 이해가 되네요. 이해가 되다 is to be understood, to be understandable. And then the 네요 ending shows that he wants to say, I see, that's right. And at this character's Korean pronunciation or fluency level, this line could have simply been 이해해요, 이해해요. I understand.
여기 나랑 같이 온 여자 보죠.
And then the next line, 여기 나랑 같이 온 여자 보이죠? 여기 means here and 나랑, this is interesting. 나랑 means with me. But it's usually better to just say 저랑 because he's speaking polite language here, okay? And then 같이, together, and 온, that came, who came, and 여자, woman, 보이다, to be seen, 보이죠? You see, right? If you want to make it simpler for the character Carl to say the same things in general, using simpler sentences, it can be 이 여자 보이죠? 이 여자 보이죠? Or even 이 여자 말이에요. 이 여자 말이에요.
제가 참 친한 친구 약혼녀인데요. 나를 굉장히 싫어해요.
제가 참 친한 친구 약혼녀인데요. This line, this was the most difficult part for me to figure out without reading the lines, and it also must have been the most challenging part for Jim Carrey too, because you have the 치읓 3 times here. 참 친한 친구, 참 친한 친구, 참 친한 친구. It is even harder for me to pronounce 참 친한 친구 quickly than other regular sentences. 참 here means very, 친한 means close, as a close friend, and 친구 is a friend. 참 친한 친구. You can also make it simpler by saying 제 친한 친구 약혼녀인데요. Or simply the ending part. 제 친구 약혼녀예요. And then he says in the next line, 나를 굉장히 싫어해요. She really hates me. I think for you and for me, 저를 굉장히 싫어해요 would be better instead of 나를, because at least when you're not that old, mixing 나 to mean I in a polite 존댓말 sentence is very tricky. And also the word 굉장히, this was a tough word choice too. So you can also go for 진짜 or 정말 to make it easier for the actor. But Jim Carrey did a fantastic job with these words nevertheless.
수미 씨 화이팅!
오케이.
아싸!
아자아자. 오케이.
수미 씨 화이팅! 수미 씨 화이팅! That was just perfect. He nailed it, and the sentence was simple, great pronunciation, so it worked really well naturally. And one tiny thing at the end before we wrap up this scene, he wants to say 아자 아자, right? 아자 아자, which is an expression of encouragement, like let's go get it. But it ended up sounding like 아싸 아싸, which is an exclamation you use when something exciting happened unexpectedly, like you found some cash in your drawer. And now moving on to another scene. This is really fun.
수미 씨, 제게 얘기했죠? 놈이에요.
수미 씨, 제가 얘기했죠. 놈이에요. So Carl is just introducing his friend to Sumi, and the name is actually Norm or Norman, but the name sounds like the Korean word, which means that guy or that dude in a negative and disrespectful tone, or even rascal. So without the context, it can actually sound something like, Sumi, I told you before, this is the guy. This is the 놈, that 놈. So the key takeaway from this scene for you is that I want you to just know the word 놈, but never use it.
Oh, Sumi, plates are out.
아니야. 너한텐 이뻐.
아니야, 너한텐 이뻐. 너 means you in casual language. 너한테, to you. 너한테는 is shortened to 너한텐, which means as for you, as for to you. And 이뻐, it's pretty. And like I said earlier in this video, we actually found and talked to John Song, who was Jim Carrey's Korean teacher and trainer for this movie. And we asked some questions about his experience. Let's watch.
Yes, I was a dialect coach for Jim Carrey and also played the role as his teacher in the movie called Yes Man. Initially, I was hired as a dialect coach. I was given the script to review and found cultural inconsistencies and problems with locations and names. I brought that up to the production and they asked me if I would consider being the consultant for the movie as well, which I accepted. After working with Jim for many months, he asked me personally if I would consider becoming an actor. And I said no, there's no way. However, in the end, Jim did win and I did come out as a teacher. Jim Carrey as a student, he has to be one of the best students I've ever had. He's diligent, he's hardworking, he never quits, and he's also a perfectionist. We worked together every chance we had. We met at his house, we were at his office, and the days that he was not in front of the camera, I was on set with Jim reviewing the Korean lines. In 2008, Hollywood had a writer's strike, which means none of the writers were on set to revise the script. However, as Jim got more comfortable with the Korean dialogues, he wanted to revise and change and add and delete some of his lines. So we worked on them together. Now, I'm not a writer, so only thing I can really focus on is simplicity and accuracy of the message that Jim wanted to portray. I told him from the beginning, Jim, if you do well, they will praise you. But if you mess up, they will curse me. So far, I haven't seen any curses online, which means that Jim did a great job as a student. The dialogue between Carl and Sumi, that was the longest Korean line that Jim had. There were takes when he did an excellent job on the first half, and there were other takes where he did excellent job on the second half. I asked Jim many times, let's just splice them together and take the one that you did well on the first half with the one that you did well in the second half, and let's put them together. But Jim refused to do it. He said, I got this, and I'm going to get it right. So we did probably over 20 takes to get that part right. Jim was so talented that even during my scene as a teacher, when I said 잘했어요, he put his hands up, turned around, and asked everyone, what did he just call me?
잘했어요.
What did he call me?
That was just pure acting. That was just genius. And when he said, Sumishi, fighting, those are added on the spot. And Jim just nailed it. So proud of Jim.
So what do you think? This movie is all about the power of saying yes, or ne in Korean, and being open to new experiences. Carl didn't learn Korean for grand purposes like saving the world. He just did it because he said yes to a random flyer, right? But that small decision led him to make new friends and solve bigger problems. I think learning a new language is exactly like that. You don't need a grand plan. You don't need to be perfect from day one either. Just saying yes to learning more Korean today opens up doors you can't see yet. It's almost 2026. Why not say yes to more new experiences in your own life, including learning more Korean? And if you've been hesitating to learn Korean, take this as your sign and just say yes. And we have a full curriculum to guide you along the journey. So if you want to start your Korean learning journey with us, just click open the description or scan the QR code right here. We make it fun to start learning Korean and more importantly, continue learning as well. I hope you enjoyed this video and please make sure to subscribe to watch more videos that we make. 그럼 다음 시간에 만나요. 감사합니다. Bye!